The galaxy is in a time of peace and prosperity. The Jedi preside over a golden age of exploration. A new threat emerges and more as the Sky Guys are back to explain the High Republic.
All right, we are back here on the Sky Guys podcast. We are getting into Acolyte preview mode here. They were going to take a little time to explain the general idea of the High Republic. What you've been missing, you've not been following the books and various materials that have been coming out for the last few years. One of your hosts, Mike Phillips. Join me today, as always, the man whose voice here in the narration every single week. Pete Consadori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Very excited to learn about the High Republic because maybe like some of you haven't been keeping up with the books. So definitely interested to see what you have to say here, or hear what you have to say. Excuse me.
Yep. Also here with us today, one of the Jedi Wayseekers, Nick Fraietta, is here. Nick, how are you?
Doing well. Feel the same as Pete. I don't know anything about the High Republic. And I know that they've had the books coming out for a number of years now. People seem to like them. I haven't really heard many complaints on those, so excited to learn more about it.
Yeah, people want to subscribe us on the Sky Guys. They can do so Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon, all usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys, your favorite podcast platform. Final episodes there. And you got Acolyte stuff coming up here. We're going to have a fun season coming up here. So make sure you subscribe. We have a lot of good stuff coming.
Yeah, don't miss out on it. It's free. Just hit that subscribe button just to make sure you're getting all the newest stuff from us.
Yep. And Nick, if you want to follow us on social media, how can they do that?
You can follow at Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok.
Yep, you can also follow the YouTube version, Mike Phillips on YouTube. We have all the fun props and graphics here. So this is a High Republic era. I'm going to take a character I know is alive in the High Republic era. So Yoda's here today.
Hello.
All right, so we got a little bit of Star Wars news here. There's one big item for sure at the top of this list, Nick. I think you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think you need to help me with the pronunciation here.
Yeah.
So, the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that who?
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver is in talks to join the cast of The Mandalorian and Grogu. She is in Avatar. I'm not really sure what else.
She's in Avatar. She's the lead in Aliens from the 80s. She's also in Ghostbusters, the original ones. So,
oh my, okay.
Very famous actress. So, Pete, you familiar with Sigourney Weaver?
I am. I don't know where she would slot in, but it sounds like a pretty cool rumor, I guess. Was it confirmed? Wasn't confirmed, right? Just a rumor?
Hollywood Reporter says she's in talks to join. She's not.
Yeah, so nothing official yet. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Nick, I think someone like with that kind of star power in this movie would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it's the same one who's in the Alien movies, which truthfully I didn't see, but yeah, awesome.
All right, so Sigourney's in the news here. What else we got?
Number 2 is The Phantom Menace is the most watched Disney Plus movie or Star Wars movie on Disney Plus, according to Variety. I mean, that just makes sense in a number of reasons. First off, they have Star Wars, like they have different categories. One of them is chronological order, and it's the first thing, obviously. And if you've never seen Star Wars, you say, where do you start? Number 1, I guess, right? So it makes perfect sense that it would be the most watched one. No surprise there to me, at least.
Pete, that's surprising. I feel like that movie's getting a little bit of a renaissance right now, Phantom Menace. Other people are starting to come back around on it.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I thought maybe Revenge of the Sith would have been the top Star Wars movie. That's my own bias though, because I think that was like my number 1 for me. But I mean, look, I mean, I enjoyed the prequels. I feel like a lot of people enjoyed the prequels, and I think it's being shown, especially episode 1 now, how it's the most watched on Disney Plus Star Wars movie, and also they made it go back to theaters as well, and I heard it did very well that weekend. So a lot of signs pointing toward the prequels were not as bad as people maybe alluded to when they first came out.
Yep. What else?
And also, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I've ever watched a Star Wars movie on Disney Plus. Have you ever sat down and just like watched A New Hope?
I did it when we did the movie ranking. I used Disney Plus.
I guess so. Yeah, we did the movie rankings. I think I did, but like, I feel like the majority of people who are actually sitting down in Disney Plus and watching the movie are people who haven't seen them, and in that case, they're going to start with episode 1 because they would say, unless and someone's telling you, hey, this is not really how you should watch it at first time, they're going to start with 1 because why wouldn't they?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's that. The third option, the third news piece, which is also the last news piece, is that an interview with Pablo Hidalgo on the Full of Sith podcast. George Lucas said he is 100% supportive of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show, and is one of his favorite projects to come out of the Disney Star Wars era.
So Pete, shout at the haters of Obi-Wan there that George loves it.
I mean, why not? I mean, this is perfectly fits into his timeline and what he's worked on, and it was a good show. Was it the best Disney Plus Star Wars show? No, I'm not gonna say it was, but it was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a lot of people out there that heavily criticized it, but I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there heavily criticizing Star Wars stuff in general. So to get high praise from George Lucas himself is definitely a great achievement on the show and the showrunner and everything like that.
You said, Nick, this is it for the news, correct?
Yep, that's it. And like that show, I mean, like, it wasn't I just felt like it wasn't necessary, and things that happened still would have remained true had the show not happened, but it doesn't mean it was, a lot of those episodes were really good. Some of those episodes I believe we gave 9s and 10s. So
Yeah, I think George is happy like that they told a good story, didn't like betray his vision of the characters Obi-Wan and Vader. I think that sort of gave him hope compared to like some of the other stuff they've done.
the only negative that comes out of that show, like in the future, is like someone out there in the universe or the galaxy rather knows about the existence of Luke and who he is. And that doesn't sit right with a lot of fans.
Yeah, that's my big problem with it, but
Yeah. But not terrible.
not terrible here. And to explain what we're doing here today on the podcast here, so I did a little research here, used the Wikipedia, some resources on the internet too. I'm not going into any plot details in New Republic here. I sort of give a general overview of like what's going on here, like what this is, what kind of materials are out there. That way, like you have an idea because you probably need, I would assume, a base level knowledge of like what this time period is, Pete, to understand like what we're going into at the Acolyte, unless you prefer going cold.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely important, and I appreciate you doing the legwork to educate Nick and myself, who haven't really kept up with the books and stuff. So it's definitely very an interesting time, and it's uncharted territory for a lot of Star Wars fans. I feel like this is a timeline that people don't really spend too much time on. So
Yeah, Nick, I feel like most of the casual fans probably aware of this because of one thing and one thing only. We'll get to it later on. So I feel like we'll get like I feel like most Star Wars casual fans, or at least the video game ones, like are only aware of that Pirate Republic period because of Jedi Survivor. I think other than that, they don't really understand what's going on here.
I guess so. I mean, this show was taking place during the High Republic era, right? The
Yes.
Acolyte, that is.
Yep.
Are we going to see? I know there was at least one character, but are we going to see a couple crossover characters here?
We do not know yet. So the only one we
No,
know,
I mean, what do you think?
I think like you might get a character or two pop up here because the showrunner Leslie Headland basically said that she's a big fan of the lore. She likes bringing in EU characters, and she loves the source materials. I'm sure she's kept up with the books, maybe sneaking out the references to like stuff that's happened in the High Republic books.
Interesting. Then we'll see. I'm excited to learn more about it. Kind of feel like you might have an unfair advantage in the character draft, but that's a different story.
Well, that's not much of an advantage here
Yeah, true.
because I did not read any of the books. So I went off the general like Wookiee summations here. So what I'll do is I'll sort
Spark notes.
of the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. All right.
So what we'll do is here, we'll go through like some different topics here. I'll give you some thoughts here. If anybody wants to stop down and discuss something, we can feel free to chime in and whatever. So we'll go a couple of different things here. So the first thing we'll start off here is just idea of what is the High Republic time period. This is something that they added with the new timelines that they put out officially from Disney a few years ago. It's a time period in the Star Wars universe set between 500 years BBY for the Battle of Yavin and 100 years BBY. The era is called the High Republic because it's considered the peak of the Galactic Republic. Is widely renowned as being a beacon of hope. They're looking to expand their influence beyond the core worlds and related territories all the way to the Outer Rim. So they're trying to spread the good word of the Republic, basically, at this time period. The Jedi Order is experiencing a golden age where they were incredibly diverse, open, and accepting. Nick, does not sound a lot like the Jedi we're used to.
It does not.
Yeah. They're based on Coruscant. They had many temples and outposts throughout the galaxy in effort to maintain peace. They were not working directly with the Republic yet, Pete. So that's another interesting point here is that at this point in the time period, Jedi are sort of independent contractors, basically. They were like working near the Republic. They're not like sort of the official like side like tied to the government like they are we see in the prequels.
Yeah, I mean, just by what you've said, it doesn't seem like they're really needed as soldiers, if you will. So yeah, no, I mean that's interesting piece to know for the Acolyte as well.
Yeah, and there's obviously we've seen the pictures, Nick, online of all of the characters like from from this show. We saw it with Dak and Gara in the video game that like they're wearing like these white robes with a gold trim that like pretty damn fancy. And basically the idea is like there was so little conflict that like they never need to get in a fight. So it was like they could wear fancy stuff, not worry about ruining it in fights.
Makes sense. This is like you said, the peak of the Galactic Republic. So like I am really excited to see that now that I like learned that. I kind of knew that as a peak, but like hearing it again, kind of reassurance in a way. Like I'm really excited to see what the peak of the Republic looked like. Hopefully, we get a lot of Coruscant from the show.
Yeah. Also, a little bit more about the Jedi of this time period. This era saw a Jedi named Barash Sylvain called the concept of the Barash Vow, where a Jedi who took this vow could become isolated hermits who spent their time trying to reconnect with the Force. So the way I look at this one, Pete, sort of like this is sort of the Yoda on Dagobah mode to Jediing that I think is being done in this way.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think we get Yoda?
I would think we get Yoda. I mean, the
Yeah,
showrunner loves all the canon. I would assume Yoda's showing up somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
May not be a main character, might be showing up with a side piece in an episode or two, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. There are also Jedi called Wayseekers who operate independently of the Jedi Council and follow the will of the Force. They did things as wide range as meditate on mountaintops, assist revolutionaries, overthrow tyrants on planets. Some even had singing careers. They could do whatever they wanted here. And Nick, does the Jedi Wayseeker remind you of anybody we know?
No, should it?
I would say here, Pete, feels a lot like our good friend Qui-Gon Jinn.
I thought you were gonna say Hondo.
Can it be Hondo? Can we make it Hondo?
No, I think in terms of like, just think about the definition here. Jedi who operate independently of the council and follow the will of the Force.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure Qui-Gon. I mean, that's how we got into it. He's why we got into all this mess, right? So I feel like that's a pretty good. Who knows? Maybe he took like High Republic ways, right? That was his like influence when he was learning to be a Jedi.
Yeah, Nick, interesting at this time also because this is a concept that's popular among Jedi at this time period. By the time we get to the prequels, the Wayseekers are gone. Like Qui-Gon's sort of like a persona non grata with the council where they kind of just tolerate him.
Yeah, it is interesting. He's the last of them, I guess, right? Well, yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah, I think I read on the Wookiee that Obi-Wan basically told him if there were still Wayseekers, you would be a great one. So the concept has definitely died by the time Phantom Menace rolls around.
Very excited to see if this show is like the reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever happens in the show is like the reason of why everything goes. It probably will be if you think about it, right? Like I don't know the timeline in terms of is the High Republic this exact time? Is it a little before, a little after the
We're
book?
the show was towards the end of the High Republic, it looks like.
That's good because that could mean that this is the reason the Republic stops being high. I guess you could say like that's the reason at the end of the High Republic, and then it becomes the Republic. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the time period is basically the downfall of the Republic, is the after the High Republic.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be really interesting.
Yeah. All right. Another thing to keep an eye on here. A lot of the galaxy was largely unexplored beyond the core worlds and territories. So it was a great hyperspace rush for prospectors to map out hyperspace routes and find territories or planets along the way. It led to some success for people like the Santeca family, and that name's familiar. We know about Laura Santeca from episode 7. He is Luke's friend at that point in the line. Plenty of pirates, including a bunch led by another friend in episode 7, Maz Kanata, Pete. So Maz is a prominent presence in the High Republic era.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. So Maz, the character herself,
Yes.
is around at that time.
Yeah, because it was Maz, I believe, is 1,000 years old, roughly.
I mean, that's probably going to show up at some point. I doubt they're going to not connect the two eras. Mike, a question back to like what Nick was saying about how this starts all this problems with the Republic. What is the years for the Clone Wars? or when the separatist movement started?
22 BBY to 19 BBY.
Okay, so in theory, if this is at 100 BBY, there's still some time before the separatist movement starts. So I feel like
Oh,
there
yeah.
is still a lot that we can
This is, I think,
explain.
132 BUI.
Yes, it's 100 years more Phantom Menace.
Okay, so then at least there's a good amount of time to have some other different conflicts than just getting back into Clone Wars era stuff. That's kind of what I was worried about. That it was going to connect again to the same exact timeline that we've been seeing forever. But it's good that at least there's some buffer there.
Yeah. In terms of the Maz Kanata stuff, Nick, like, sounds like she's the main pirate of this era where, like, they talk about her castle on Takodana where, like, a lot of people are coming through. So, like, Maz is a big presence in this time period.
And I shake my head in disgust. Not because I don't like Maz. Maz is a fine character. I have no issues. But we're talking about the main pirate here. Who should we be talking about? Cross your bingo boards off.
There's a good chance he could be in this show, you know.
We should be talking Hondo right now. We don't know how old he is, though. We have no idea.
Well, I mean, that being undefined could help because, I mean, he could
It
show
could
up
help.
in the show.
It's a good point. It might help.
Because I know, like, the showrunner Leslie Headland also said that she's a huge fan of Clone Wars, so maybe there's a connection here that Hondo is one of her the pirates hanging out with her gang.
Maybe.
All right, so now to sort of wrap up this section here, while the Jedi were attempting to explore the far reaches of the galaxy, they came into conflict with a mysterious species of marauders called the Nihil, who made their mark and attack in 232 BUIs, 100 years before this show. A destroyer ship called the Legacy run a series of moons near the Hextall system that sent tons of debris towards planets, threatening millions of lives. And these Nihil are able to wreak havoc because they could able to access hyperspace pads that could defy logical travel. They basically pop up anywhere without realizing or any warning. Their leader had a personal grudge to the Jedi and the Republic he was trying to exploit. And this is sort of the main storyline in the books right now, is what's going on in this Jedi Nihil conflict.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and we get hints of the Nihil and Jedi survivors. We'll get to in a minute because, like, we'll talk about that. But Pete, would you interesting to see if these Nihil pirates or marauders show up in the Acolyte in some form?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I think, like Nick had mentioned, probably we should just get Hondo, just figure how to do that instead of these Nile pirates. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting. I think, just reading the notes here, I think that having a, like I mentioned before, having a enemy or something that's not uh of old, right? A new enemy, something that's different, something we can learn about, I think is always going to be good for Star Wars. And at least allows you to have a different feel like you're in a different timeline and you're not like replaying the same old stuff over and over again. So if they use them, then kudos to them.
Yep. So let's go now to the next section here. We're going to talk a little about what kind of materials out there, if this has interested you and you want to learn more about this High Republic stuff and get more involved in the storyline itself. Product itself is basically a multimedia campaign taking place across books, comics, short stories, you name it. There are currently 3 different phases of written material. Phase 1 is called The Light of the Jedi. It ran between January 2021 and March 2022. Phase 2, Quest of the Jedi, ran between October 2022 and May 2023. Phase 3, which is the current phase, Trials of the Jedi, started October 23 and is set to run through an unspecified 2025 end date. This is the longest phase thus far, Nick.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Yeah.
Is there, like, you say it's currently 3. Are there plans for a 4th? Or
Like, they have a lot of plans for this stuff. I think these are the publicly known ones. It might be sort of like a Marvel situation where they have stuff like, remember Feige even said, "Oh, I have the movies planned for like 2028." So it might be something like where they have stuff planned for like next like 10 years and they're just going to slow roll it out.
right, right.
Yeah.
And when you say material, are we talking just straight up books? Are there comics thrown in there? Are there shorts,
There's
like graphic novels thrown in there? Like,
there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's like
just,
books, straight up books, adult books. There's youth novels. There's comics. There's short stories, and like there is some like multimedia material, but like mostly it's written stuff.
all right. So virtually impossible to try to figure out what to read and get through it all.
Yeah, so like there's like a belief like there are guides out there to tell you what to read and like what's order to read it in, but like that's something like I think is a bit beyond what we're trying to do at the podcast here.
It'd take me forever.
Yeah.
Not a fast reader, so that would be bad.
Even with the audiobooks probably take a while.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the first book of the whole thing I'll mention here is Light of the Jedi, which was released on January 5th, 2021. Takes place 200 years for the Phantom Menace. So this is 100 years for our show, the first book.
So we're getting close to the timeline of the Acolyte.
Yeah. Yep. In terms of visual media, we have a few things that have been released here. Nick, the kids show, Disney Plus, Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, where you always teach a bunch of younglings how to become Jedi Knights. That is a High Republic era show, which is interesting to note.
Yeah, great show. I've seen it.
Yeah.
No,
So-
I've seen it in the background with like nephews and nieces and whatnot. Never really sat down and watched it, but it looks fun. Looks like the kids enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's a good vehicle to get the kids into Star Wars. That's like not as like conflict heavy as like the original movies are.
Yeah, the movies I feel like you got to be like
7.
6, 7, 8, and that range, six to 8 to really get into them.
Yeah, this feels like it's more like 3 to 5-year-olds will be in for.
Yes, yeah, it's a toddler show.
Yeah. So that's out there. The Acolyte, obviously, we're going to talk about more next week here. The one that's interesting for us here, Jedi Survivor, which we covered on the podcast last year. We had numerous flashbacks of the High Republic and the antagonist in Dak and Gara. Like, what do you guys remember about the High Republic stuff from the video game, Nick?
Not much at all. Those are the parts that I didn't like.
You were not a big fan of the High Republic stuff from
Not because of it, not because I didn't like it, because we weren't playing it. We were learning about it and watching it. Like I wanted to experience it.
you wanted to play as like in the Dak and Gara era.
Oh, I would love that then. And that'd be fun. But and nothing against the High Republic. It's just that we were just watching it through the cutscenes and finding those guys talking to us and hearing about what happened here hundreds of years ago. And I was like, I don't know if I care.
Yeah, Pete.
No fault to anyone except me and my attention span.
Pete, were you a fan of the High Republic stuff we got in the game?
I mean, pretty much same as Nick. I don't know if I remember it. I think I didn't get like. Okay, so I understand it was there, but I don't think I put 2 and 2 together. I just kind of went through it and I kind of had tunnel vision of I needed to complete the game for the podcast, and I just kind of went through the main story and all the little side stuff and the flashbacks kind of went over my head. So I don't remember much of it. Maybe I can go back, maybe just do a YouTube search to see if there was, a cutscene movie. Sometimes they do that with video games where someone compiles all the cutscenes and can look through it again.
Yeah. So as far as I remember about the High Republic stuff in the video game, obviously like Cal finds all the High Republic temples that are like the puzzle quests that you basically side quests. You can solve the puzzles and learn some force skills along the way. He finds High Republic ruins throughout the around Kobo. He finds a bunch of them, and the flashbacks of Dak and Gara, like this is sort of where we learn about the Tanalor stuff, Nick.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they have the temple on Tanalor they build, and then it gets attacked by our friends the Nihil in the flashback here. And I think one of the Jedi masters, I think Oppo Rancisis, orders them to flee and get out hell out of Dodge. And Dagon gets upset about that, which is why he gets his arm cut off and in prison because he's against the order. So we may get like I believe this is before the timeline of the show, so I don't think we're gonna see a Dagon here. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, good to know.
All right. Last thing I sort of want to touch on here. Also, got one quick side note here. Our favorite video game will never release Jedi Star Wars Eclipse is in this time period too.
Okay. We'll see if that one comes out. Just so I know, when does Outlaws take place?
It takes place in the I think during the movies.
The Pete era?
The original movies.
Oh, okay. From now on I call between 3 and 4 the Pete era.
All right. So last thing I want to touch on here is this character Vernestra Rwoh, who we see in the trailer here. Just want to let everybody know here, she's one of the first characters created in the High Republic series. She appeared in the very first book, Light of the Jedi, as a 15-year-old ascending to the rank of Jedi Knight. making her the youngest in a long time to achieve that status. So, child prodigy of Vernestra Rwoh here, Pete.
All right, so we're not to say getting comparisons of Anakin, but kind of getting that, you know, she was the best and she was supposed to be the top and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of starting to see a theme, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so another thing about Vernestra Rwoh, she carries a purple lightsaber with a modification to turn the blade into a light whip after seeing a vision from the Force. Eventually, she rises the ranks to become a Jedi Master and a leader in the Order. Nick, she was born in 248 BBY. So she's over 100 years old by the time we start this show.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. So let's see how she looks. Or you actually seen her already in the trailers, but interesting.
Yeah, so she's a very sage leader of the council. I don't know if she's on the council, but a very sage Jedi leader at this point. It was like some of the other characters are going to her for advice.
And she's confirmed to be in the show, correct?
It was in the trailer.
Yeah, that's right. And that was her, right? That wasn't just her
Yep.
lightsaber. That was her.
No, they confirmed it was her.
Cool.
All right, so that's basically all I got here on the High Republic intro. I think this is basically what we need to know for this episode. So I feel like, Pete, you feel like you're more equipped for the Acolyte now. We've sort of had this little conversation.
I am for sure more equipped. Let me tell you, that purple lightsaber that turns into, what was it, a whip you said? It's
Yep.
like a light whip. That is pretty freaking cool. So I'm excited to see if that makes it into the show at all.
It is going to be in the show, they said.
Okay, well, I'll see it when I believe it. I don't trust people when they say things are going to be in a show versus not. However, if it actually does make it in, which it's, you know, like you said, confirmed, it's going to be pretty cool. So I think I'm much more prepared. I think the show too, I mean, we'll talk about this too when we talk about the preview, but I feel like the show's going to try to do a good job of preparing you. So I don't know if it's going to be so much everyone's going to be, you know, left in the dust here when it comes to the lore, but this was definitely good. I liked it.
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a solid way to sort of just like dip your toe in without having to go into all the different plots and characters. Just give you a little basis of like
Of course, a one-shop stop for your High Republic needs to get yourself ready for the Acolyte.
Yeah, and I will point out to people, this interested you, there is plenty of more material out there that you can go look at and find if you want to follow the books. I'm sure there's probably YouTube videos explaining all of these storylines that are going on. You want to get yourself even more in the lore, but I think for our purpose, it's about like a nice 20-minute like little like intro course here for the High Republic.
100%.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for us this week here, and next week the big Acolyte season 1 preview show. So we're gonna have a fun chat, getting ready for this show, which is very, very different than anything we've ever covered before on this podcast, Pete.
Yeah, I'm definitely very excited. It's a breath of fresh air, I think, and hopefully it's done beautifully.
This is our first show. I guess technically we have the character we just spoke about. How do you pronounce her name? Vernestra?
Yep.
This is the first show though that like we're going into without really knowing the characters.
Yes.
Like, I guess Andor, we knew Andor. That's about it.
A Mandalorian to a degree.
True, Mandalorian ended up at least at the beginning, yeah. But this is like completely different. Is the point?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get like pop-ins from some characters who we've heard of, and there may be some that we'll bring in from the EU. But like,
Yeah,
most of our main cast is like people we have not really seen outside of Vernestra being in these these High Republic books.
That's right.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. Pete. People want to follow you on social media. I'm going to do that.
At Consy29, CONSY29 on Twitter. AP Tyler 308 created this background on Reddit. Make sure you check them out.
All right, Nick. People want to follow us on social media one more time. I'm going to do that.
At Sky Guys Podcast on Instagram, Twitter X, Threads, and TikTok.
You can also follow me on social media, mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. This will go over Just on the Suffering podcast. We'll get you caught up here on what's going on with the Knicks and the Rangers in the playoffs as well. Plus, our good friend Nick Fraietta came out by talking about the NFL schedule.
That's me.
Yeah.
Giants 17-0.
Yeah. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Definitely you heard it here first. No one else said it.
Yep. All right, we'll be back next week for our Acolyte Season 1 preview show. Until then, may the Force be with you.